This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so welcome to Level 2, Lesson 1. And as always, everything that we're going to be talking about today is for educational purposes only, and nothing is intended as any type of investment advice. All right, so let's talk about what we're going to be doing this week. So the first thing is obviously last week we went over prints and basically what we're going to be looking for, and how those prints are going to work. At this point, we should understand our 1 through 4 trades and what we're looking for. So now what we're going to do is we're going to use the live market, and I'm going to teach you how to think. All right, how when somebody calls something out, where our mind needs to, immediately end up going to, how we're going to look at all the possibilities. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to take everything that in these past 3 rounds of classes that we've talked about, and we're going to put it into action. All right. So the first thing that I want to start with is how do we look at a stock that's called out? And I'm going to say called out because is there really any difference between somebody calling something out and you finding it on your scanner? Is there really any difference whatsoever? No, because what happens is that once we pull up a stock, we have to look at it in a certain way. One of the biggest mistakes that a lot of people make within their trades is they try to trade a story when we're trading, instead of looking at it actually as a trade. Everything we see, for instance, I mean, OMTX, I just pulled up. When we look at this, is anything that's happened up until this point help us within a trade? I usually pull it up and decipher if it's trading smoothly or not. So we're going to get there. Now, nothing else is going to help me. So when I see a stock going straight up, what's my number one thought? What should my immediate thought be? So when coming back to reality, so first of all, it's too pretty, but can we chase stocks? Can we chase stocks and be successful? We cannot. So technically, anything to the upside right now, could we trade it? No. So what it's going to do is understanding that it's going to help us decipher what we need to look for. Because in a case like this, yes, it is way too cheap. Would we ever take a pullback trade? No, because there's just not enough room for it to be able to pull back and go into. So we'd have to look for a long trade, but we need our trades to set up for us. Now I'm going to pull up CAN, C-A-N, right now, and we're going to look at this brand new. So what's the first thing I need to know about CAN? Where does my mind immediately go? What should my first thought be looking at CAN right now? Our print personality, right? Because I need to understand before I could even go into anything if this is worth trading, if there's actual money that's going into it. So then the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go down and we're going to see about what the print personality is. So let's start. What is our print personality here? As we're looking and we're seeing, what is our print personality? Yeah, so 3 is the real answer because obviously, there's a couple of bursts that are above 3, but for the most part, we're going to be looking at 3. 4 is always going to be safer. So one of the things that we want to understand is depending on your level of trader, the level of trader that you are, if something is under 4, is it something that you should be looking at as a newer trader? No, why not? Why is 4 so important? Why is that number 4? That we really want to look for? So 3 is very close, but we're going to look for 4. Why 4? Yeah, so the minimum we want to see ideally for our rules, and the reason behind that is because of the fact that, if it's under 4, if they're printing bursts in less than 4, a lot of what's going to be happening is hidden. All right, so we want to see something that's actually showing us what goes on within the stock. So now what we need to do is we need to find, so what's the only reason we look at a stock? So the number one thing is that it's moving, right? We need volatility in order to be able to trade a stock. If a stock is not moving and it's not showing us actual trading in it, do we have a chance of it getting as far away as quickly as possible from our entry? And obviously the answer there is going to be no. So we need to make sure that it's moving first. The next thing we need to know is what its print personality is. Okay, now this is all under the assumption that the stock has volume. Okay, if a stock doesn't have volume, I don't care what you see, you can't trade it because it doesn't really mean anything at that point. So now we want to go to our prints and we want to see what something that stands out. Because even if a stock is moving, if we do not get some type of controlling prints, can we even look at it for a trade? Who looks at movement? Who is interested in movement? Retail. Okay, market makers create movement. Retail is the people that trade movement. So if we're trading movement, that means we're retail trading. Who loses their money? As blunt as I can be, who loses their money? It's not our market makers, it's retail. So we never want to be trading with retail. We always want to find something that stands out big time in comparison to what the stock is actually doing. So now we go back to what Derek said. Derek, is this a smooth trading stock? Because we don't always have to trade a smooth trading stock. There's stocks that are going to tell us exactly what's going to happen within them, even though they're not trading as smooth. But why is a smooth trading stock so important for us? Why are we suckers for smooth trading stocks? What's the reason behind it? Helps us with our mission statements, follows the rules, but that's the big one right there, less shakeouts. The smoother a stock shows you that it's trading, the more of a chance that on a trigger, it is not a false trigger. Okay, makes sense so far? Everybody's with me, perfect. So now let's look at our prints. We have beautiful ask prints that came in at 18. Okay, what does this immediately tell us? Now we know we can't trade a stock that's going straight up because that would be chasing. So our immediate reaction to these prints right now have to be what? So a number one trade, right? So a number one trade is really at this point the only thing that we can do. Now we talked about possibilities. Okay, is there enough range within this stock for a number one trade to make sense? Because when we see the possibilities here, when we see that the stock, the way that it's moving, okay, we have to look, does it pull back enough? Is 25 cents enough for a pullback trade if it shows us that it's trading 25 cents? And obviously we missed this trade, guys, but we're going to break it down because we all know that number one was the answer. Okay, no, why is 25 cents not enough for a pullback trade? Are we going to make a full 25 cents if a stock pulls back 25 cents? Does it really leave us any type of risk versus reward going into it? Doesn't give us enough. There you go, Christian. We can only make 60 cents on the move, and that's not enough for the risk for reward. And that's exactly what it is. It's just not enough. So what's the minimum that we need a stock to show us that it pulls back in order to be able to take a number one trade, or if it was bid prints, a number three trade? 50 cents. If the personality does not show it moving back 50 cents, you immediately have to follow the prints, because there's two ways that we can go about trading this. Okay, number one is to let it pull back under 18 and then take it long, which is a number 4, right? Or the number one, if the possibilities show us that there's enough. So we know our print personality is 3, correct? We know our print personality is 3. Is these prints at 18 over print personality? I know, really dumb question, of course, but obviously, what was our reaction? What was our reaction to these 18 prints? Right, Tracy? Duh. What was our reaction? Okay, so these two bids, do they stand out in comparison to immediately after 809 to 815? What's our actual reaction here? Who came in and showed us this is what I'm doing? It's buying, right? So if we're in this trade, we know we're going to have to get out because it's a number one trade to pull underneath 18. But when we see this reaction, did we have to get out immediately if we were long? Let's say we had prints at 18, we pulled back, we took a trigger back up. Would we have to? Would we have to immediately get out? No. But what would our time frame be? What would our time frame be in this stock? Shorter time frame. Why is that? Who's in more control here? The 18 controlling prints or these 809 to 815 reaction prints? Who's actually in control of what the overall stock is going to do? The reaction or? So it's always the market maker. Like Tracy just said, always the market maker. Okay, we start a trade at 18. Who's dominant in the stock? At 18 or above 18? Who's the dominant person here? The market maker at 18, correct? What did this person show us? We talked about what those reaction prints mean and the fact that they're off level. I know they're 810 and 815, so it kind of gives us even a stronger chance, a stronger percentage for the pullback because they're not technically off level. But did this person show us building or position or trade? Yeah, they showed us a trade. Why did they show us a trade? Why is this a trade rather than it showing us building? Even though it's slightly over print personality, why is it a trade? What type of prints are these? And not for nothing, guys, but this is one easy trade. Yeah, it's showing us the short. That's showing us the now prints. They're showing us a position that they're looking to make money on, versus showing us that they need to pull back. Now we know it needs to pull back a little bit, but remember what possibilities are. So when this stock pushes up to 19, what does this story now tell us? So we know the dominant market maker is way over print personality, correct? Way over print personality tells us what number trade. Way over print personality and ask tells us number one. Then the reaction shows us that in the short term, we still have room to the upside. But who do we always interpret the prints from? What is this reaction? What is a reaction interpreted from? What do we always interpret? The controlling prints we're following from the market maker. Our show of hand, which is, perfect way to put it, because that's technically a show of hand, is our controlling prints. How much did they tell us that this stock needs to pull back? How much does the stock tell us it needs to pull back? So 50 cents is not enough. Why is 50 cents not enough? Print personality tells us the stock needs to move 50 cents, right? What's print personality? It's 3. How much over 3 are these prints at 18? A lot or a little bit? So if on average it needs to move 50 cents, is it more than 50 cents? Pretty simple there, right? The math tells us more than 50 cents. But now we got to understand personalities of stocks. What's the number that it's coming down to for 50 cents? Why is 1750 such an important number? It's a psych level. So technically, even though we know it needs to pull back more than 50 cents, what does our price target have to be? 1750. Now we know it needs to come back more, but we got to think of it like a trade. What are the chances of playing games at 1750? High or low? Very high. If there's a high chance of the stock playing games, even though it told us we need to pull back a bunch more than 1750. In all reality, okay, we want to look at it as a trade first, but we also want to understand really where the reality is. What number is the real price target here? Because remember, we know 1750 has to play games, so we have to be ready. Why is 17 the actual number? Why is 17 the actual number that we'd be looking for? Because remember, we're putting this all together. So we have to look at our puzzle that we have here. Why is overall 17 the number? Number one, we know it needs to go lower than 1750, correct? What do we have sitting right here at 17? Major support level, okay? An orb line. What is the orb line going to act as it continues on its way? Well, support, but what is the support going to do to it? Yeah, like a magnet, right? So we know that depending on that, we need to look at what our prints at 1750 were. Okay, so when we come into 1750, we can see, did we get any strong selling into there yet? Nothing that stands out, right? So technically, what do they need to do? Bring it back up to get more interest in it, to then show us more of that selling to break underneath this.